That is one of the big treasures of mushrooms, that pro-aging or anti-aging works in every single cell of our body, in the mitochondria, even for the gut, even for the heart. It's for the whole system.
Lion's mane can be an incredible against neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, dementia as a whole. Is lion's mane just a trend?
Well, definitely it's not a trend. We have seen in the studies we have conducted is that it gives you neuroplasticity. Your neurons become younger.
Dr. Catalina Fernández de Ana Portela is a biologist and mycologist
pioneering medicinal mushroom innovation for human health and healing.
Cordyceps works in many ways, but what happens in the blood is that we are having a 40% production of ATP, which is a molecule for energy, and up to 30% more oxygen in the blood by taking cordyceps.
How does mushrooms help support cancer treatment?
There are mechanisms of action. The most important is the immune system. When we see a patient that has a cancer, that has a diagnosis, their gut microbiome is different from a healthy person. Then with the mushrooms, what we see is that they start reshaping their composition of their microbiome into the healthier one. You can change the composition of your microbiome only in 5 days.
Firstly, I want to say thank you to tuning in and listening to the show. It means a huge amount. And connecting with all of you is something that I absolutely love as part of this journey of growing the show. One of my biggest goals of 2025 is doubling the reach of this show. And I can't do that without your support. So I would love to ask you a favor. If you can press subscribe or follow on whichever platform you listen to. This helps us reach more people. And for me, elevating women in science is so fundamental and ethical and scientific information. So if you feel the show empowers you and gives you the information that you've been seeking, I would love to ask a favor in return and to hit that subscribe button and help me reach the goal that I've set for the show of 2025. Thank you. I have never done a podcast yet on mushrooms. And there is a reason for that, because I've really struggled to find somebody on that expertise level that I really trust to come on here and talk about the medicinal properties that mushrooms can bring. And then I came across you. And so I am thrilled because you've been in this area for 26 years now, and you have basically dedicated your life to mycology. Your father was one of the leading mycologists in Spain as well. So you've basically taken on his pioneering work. And you are doing trials upon trials, 15 clinical trials I think you have running at the moment, or in total you've been doing?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so there's a wealth of things that we're going to dive into today. When I looked at the stats, I was quite surprised. So the medicinal mushroom globally, the market is worth 35 billion. And there has been around 92 species of mushrooms that have been identified to support anti-cancer treatments. So people might find that quite interesting, like putting these two medicinal mushrooms and cancer and oncology together. And we're going to unpack all of that. But I thought before we do, and we look at the health benefits, I want to start with the basics. What is medicinal mushrooms? For anyone listening, can we start to uncover what they are?
So mushrooms, generally speaking, it's a kingdom. It's a whole kingdom between plants and animals.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that you described it as a kingdom. And I think there is so much coming up now in the mycology sector. You know, you look on Netflix and like Michael Pollan and all these different people talking about, you know, everything that's underneath us, the roots of the trees, and you can see all the networks connecting. Your research mostly focuses on, and you can correct me, it's not the magic mushroom side. It's not the ones that make us high and, you know, connect to that higher consciousness, which is one of the three that you just described. Although the research in that area is also expanding, especially around PTSD and so on and so forth. But you're focusing on more on the mushrooms that we can eat and consume. Is that right?
Yes.
So one thing like that, when I was like looking at all the research that you're doing, I thought, well, let's start with some that people might have heard of, but still aren't sure if it's going to be that helpful to them. So lion's mane is getting a really big kind of moment, I'd say, where a lot of people are adding it to their coffees in the morning. And I would reference it as a nootropic. So things that can kind of allow us to connect more wiring in our brain and work with neuroplasticity and new neural networks. I want to start with lion's mane because I think it's having a real buzzword at the moment and it's on a trend, and there's lots of different research studies out there at the moment. Some really interesting ones that I've come across, whether it's neuroprotective, neuroplasticity. This is words that, a lot of our listeners would have heard. And I also heard you kind of mention just before you came on also how it's involved in gut health. So is lion's mane just a trend, first of all? And if it's not, what does the research say, and how can people use it really day to day?
Well, definitely it's not a trend. It is a trend how it got now to be known. It is something that we've been researching now for more than 20 years. And there's a lot of research from other universities, research centers, hospitals. But we have big research in autism in children, for example.
Wow.
With lion's mane and reishi, which is giving an incredible result. And this is very much linked to that link of the brain axis to the gut, because we are seeing that when there are in the metabolism of the microbiota, we're missing some of those secondary metabolites that are produced by the specific microbiota. We're conducting now a study in Argentina, Venezuela, and Colombia.
Wow. And is it safe? I guess it's safe for kids to take, right?
The beautiful thing of mushrooms is that they're really safe. Only people who cannot take mushrooms are the ones that are allergic. But if not, they're completely compatible with every treatment. The mushroom, the pure mushroom. So when we're talking about the extract that is dry and extracted, or the pure mushroom powdered, or even the mycelium, depending on how it's done. But what is very important is how then it's been produced, the excipients that it's put, that it's when it can interact with other drugs. But if not, if it's the mushroom pure, in the whole form, then there's no problem, and we have tested it. This is something that we need to always, when we go into research, we need to go through something that is called the ethical committee of the hospital, where you need to bring all the proofs and all the previous studies in cellular forms and also in rats, in murine models that are called, in order to see that it's safe, there's no toxicity, and that people can take them.
That's really important. So you mentioned there are two mushrooms, lion's mane, and then you slipped in one very quickly and we didn't have time to interrupt you, but it was reishi. So I want to make sure that people kind of who are new to this really understand what these mushrooms are. So you've just mentioned lion's mane, and that can work really well on our gut health, you were saying, and our brain health.
Yes. What we have seen in the studies we have conducted is that it gives you neuroplasticity, meaning that your neurons become younger.
Yes.
And that is an idea that I really love, which is not the pro-aging or anti-aging. It's not only for the face.
It's for the mind.
It's for the whole system.
Yeah.
Even for the gut, even for the heart and the circulatory system. So that is one of the big treasures of mushrooms, that pro-aging or anti-aging works in every single cell of our body, in the mitochondria, in the elastin, for example. So it's for our skin, for our arteria, for every single membrane of the cells. And what we're going to see with the intake of lion's mane is that you can have a better sleep, you can have a better focus and concentration because of those neurons that are even growing, because they activate the synthesis of the nerve growth factor. So lion's mane erythronones are molecules that are contained ingredients and that can surpass the hematoencephalic barrier. This is a barrier that normally nothing can
This
trespass.
is the blood-brain barrier.
The
blood-brain barrier.
barrier. And normally nothing can trespass it because it has to be closed there.
Yeah,
The brain, nothing can trespass it. But these a resonance scan. So they will be there activating
The myelin sheath.
the myelin sheath that is protecting the nerves. And this is so important because it's going to give us the connections from the brain to activate the muscles and to activate the action. So what we're thinking, it has to go all the impulse, the nerve impulse, directly to move actually what we are, the action that we're sending. And this happens when everything is completely connected with that myelin sheath. And this is something that lion's mane does. So we can see a improvement in multiple sclerosis, for example.
Wow, so you can be working with MS.
We are working with with the MS as well, and it's helping there. As I was saying, with autism, we have now a research that is starting, that's a clinical trial with 500 elderly people that we're going to work to see how we can work in early stages of Alzheimer's, because we are seeing that we can help incredibly with Alzheimer's.
With lion's mane?
Yes, with the extract of lion's mane.
I think that's something that so many of us are scared of, right? I know it's the leading cause of death in the UK. I say that all the time in this podcast because I think dementia and Alzheimer's is something that always arises. It's incredible. So I guess even thinking pre-Alzheimer's, right? Maybe if you've got a genetic risk for it, a genetic disposition. Yeah. This is maybe something that people should be thinking about, right? As a prevention measure.
Totally, because so we need to change the medicine that intervenes for the medicine that prevents.
Can I ask one question here? Is it similar with Parkinson's? Have you done any research on that?
Yes. Also work on Alzheimer's, early phases of Parkinson, because when the damage it's been made, at the end it's an oxidative damage that's made to the neurons.
Oxidative damage, yeah.
So if that is implemented, it's very difficult then to undo that damage, to reverse that. So we need to work in initial phases in order to be able to reverse that and to give a better prognosis and a better outcome. So it is very interesting that people that have had cases in the family or genetically disposition need to really do a prevention on their lifestyle in order to help preventing this cellular damage that will cause and end in Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. At the end, there's always there an oxidative stress that is working, that is damaging the cells, that's going to cause a decay of the nervous system, that's going to be affecting in one way or the other. And it is going to be, and normally is linked very much to, not the best nutrition maybe throughout a life.
Well, I guess this is also very important to mention, right? So these are mushrooms that we can eat, nutrition. Again, we're not talking about magic mushrooms. And I guess this just encompasses, and I don't want people to leave this and just think, well, if I get some lion's mane in my diet, I'm, not going to get Alzheimer's. It all comes together, right? It works as a lifestyle medicine.
Exactly.
Where it's, lion's mane as an addition to this can be an incredible neuroprotector against neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia as a whole. And even when we look at mental health, right, that's also where a lot of lion's mane research is up and coming with anxiety, depression, stress. And as we know in that sector, and I talk about this a lot on the show, it's also about the lifestyle interventions that can support this.
Totally.
But what I find really interesting is, again, I told you we haven't had a conversation on this on the show yet. So for people to think about this as a next step to add into their lifestyle is quite new for a lot of people. When it comes to mental health, what's the research there with things like anxiety and depression and even stress? Because stress is under that umbrella of mental health.
There's a lot. Life is a path that we need to have a correct nutrition. We need to do exercise. We need to have mindfulness to have those moments of peace where we disconnect or we connect with our inner self. And then be very cautious of what we're putting into our system, because there are so many harmful things in food right now. In fact, we are now conducting a very important clinical trial on breast cancer working on microbiota, with lion's mane being one of the ingredients. And that is really helping to set new biomarkers with the microbiota to give a better prognosis of the big responders, of how people are going to respond to the chemotherapy or immunotherapy.
Iron is one of the most common deficiencies that I see in clinic, especially in women. And it's not just about feeling tired. Low iron can impact your energy, your focus, your mood, and even your immune system. It's something we really need to be aware of, because if left untreated, iron deficiency can become very serious. Now, UK data shows that around 20 to 35% of women aged 18 to 50 do not meet the recommended dietary guidelines for iron intake. And if you're pregnant, menstruating, or following a vegetarian or vegan diet, your needs are even higher, and therefore you're more at risk. So that's why I often recommend Spartone. Now, this is a naturally sourced iron-rich water that comes from the Welsh Hills. It contains ferrous iron, the most absorbable form, with studies showing up to 40% absorption. So your body can actually use what it takes in. Now, it's also incredibly gentle. It's one natural ingredient, there's no harsh tablets, and there's no digestive issues. I use it myself, and it is my go-to in clinic. You can pick up Spartone at Boots, and if you've been feeling low on energy, it's absolutely worth checking in on your iron with your doctor or GP.
And I think people might just be stopped in their tracks, first of all, that you've mentioned how it can help with breast cancer. And I know that your background's oncology. So many people are being diagnosed with cancer. 18 million people are diagnosed around the world with cancer. And obviously now, 5 years later, that's only growing more and more. I think the fact that you're connecting so much of these medicinal mushrooms into cancer treatment, which I really want to delve into, and even autism, that's super interesting for me. But I have to talk about the cancer treatment. You're an oncologist by background. We've just heard about all the incredible ways that different types of mushrooms can help support the body and the whole system, the body, the mind, the immune system, everything, the endocrine system. But, we've touched a little bit here through the show on cancer. And you started by saying at the beginning of this podcast that you're looking at breast cancer treatment at the moment with certain mushrooms.
It's a mix of eight different medicinal mushrooms. Yes.
So I was looking kind of before this podcast, obviously, at all the different clinical trials that you're doing. And I also looked at a recent review that found that 92 mushroom species have been found with anti-cancerous effects in the lab, but only 11 have reached clinical trials. And so I thought, well, what a better time to start this with you, who is pioneering this sector in cancer treatment. Two very different camps, bringing it together. How does mushrooms help support cancer treatment? And is there any type of cancer which has shown the kind of best outcome with mushrooms?
So it's going to work in what's called the different hallmarks of cancer, what takes a healthy cell in a healthy environment to a tumorigenic environment where it's not healthy anymore, it's not clean anymore. So the cell is going to go through different steps, different hallmarks, where it's going to become carcinogenous. And then it's going to invade other bases, and it's going to invade other terrains of the body. How the mushrooms work from a very, very high level would be on the immune system, being biological response modifiers. So changing the response of the immune system versus recognizing the cancer cell and understanding that is a cancer cell and attacking it.
Wow. So it can directly...
It's not going to be as, direct as that, but there are mechanisms of action. They're going to be helping through various mechanisms. But the most important is the immune system And then we're seeing a lot on microbiota.
And the gut microbiome.
So the gut microbiome, it's going to definitely be something that we see from scratch. When we see a patient that has a cancer, that has a diagnosis, their gut microbiome is different from a healthy person.
Yes.
So
I've heard about this.
we know there's a difference there. And when we start working with the medicinal mushrooms in a person who has this dysbiosis, has a system in the gut microbiota that is not in equilibrium, in balance, then with the mushrooms, what we see is that they start changing, reshaping their composition of their gut microbiome, into the healthier one.
Yeah.
It's a long process, as we always say. It doesn't
Yes.
happen overnight. But what we do see is that you can change the composition of your microbiome only in 5 days.
It blows my mind. And I love that I'm having so many different types of conversations coming to my mind right now, because Dr. William Lee has come on here quite a few times, and he talks a lot about food and cancer treatments. And he speaks a lot about the gut microbiome needing to be targeted during cancer treatment as well. And I think just getting people to hear that conversation, I think every single person listening to this has had somebody in their life that has been touched by cancer. And sometimes that diagnosis can feel very heavy. And also there's only one route. And I think knowing that there is also evidence out there of other things that aren't dangerous, because again, sometimes there are things that are dangerous that's mentioned that do come with safety, is important in this. And thinking about the gut microbiome when going through cancer care and treatment is really important to be considered.
Yes, what we are always doing is bringing in the concept of integration. It's integrative medicine. It's
Yes.
integrative oncology, never alternative. We're always talking of side by side with the medical oncological treatment, of the hospital treatment. So people are taking the treatment, but what we are doing, bringing the medicinal mushrooms in, is helping them to cope better with that treatment, to have a better quality of life while getting the treatment. And overall, for the oncologists, is to get that patient supported out of all the treatment, so we can get the completion of the whole window of treatment that we have to work in.
Yes.
Because it's very intense. So we need to work. And for that, we work with serums, creams for radiotherapy with mushrooms,
Wow.
with Cordyceps and Reishi. We also work with these liquid forms, which are very specific. Now, one thing that is very important, and more than anything, when we're talking about an illness or when we're talking about cancer, more than anything, it's very important that not everything can be taken. For example, the forms that have alcohol shouldn't be taken.
So that you see that a lot in tinctures, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, that's really good.
Tinctures
to mention.
shouldn't be taken.
Okay.
Because always when we study the evidence to work in cancer, it's always with extracts. Because if we bring alcohol into a body that is, trying to
suppressant.
detoxify all of the chemotherapy, we're bringing more problems to that liver, those drugs. So it is hugely important that if we trust a treatment of medicinal mushrooms while we are undergoing a cancer treatment, it has to be a validated model with clinical trials, with going through a clinical committee, ethical committees of the
Yes.
hospitals, that there's evidence, solid evidence. The rates of cancer incidents are mind-blowing right
Yeah.
now. When I presented my thesis 3 years ago now, I was presenting. So this is something we need to be very aware about. Where do we live? What do we breathe every day? What do we drink? What do we eat? And then that being the basis of our health And the health span that we are going to have depends on this, on what we do every day. And then we can throw really good things into that nutrition, which is lion's mane, for being one, can be something that on a daily basis can work at a cellular level, bringing a little bit of that extract or powder of the mushroom. And it's going to work in different ways, in different equilibriums, balancing the cells and the cycles of the cells. So they're going to be fed on these molecules and these ingredients, and they're going to be building a new system that's going to help. But it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
This is something that we have to be taking it minimum 3 months, I would say, in order to find the difference in my analytics. We can see that before. We can see a difference in analytics in 17 days, even in the microbiome in 5 days, as fast days.
Wow.
But if we put it in and then we take it off because we feel better and we don't keep it for 3 months, the ameliorations will come and go. As fast as they came, they will go. So this is very important.
I've watched the science of adaptogens grow personally over the last few years, and I've become more curious in their role in nervous system support, focus, and resilience, because adaptogens basically buffer the cortisol that gives us that stress and anxiety. But here's the thing, quality is everything. Most adaptogens on the market don't actually contain enough of the active compounds that you see in clinical studies to make a difference. That's why I've partnered with London Neuroprotection. These guys only use clinical studied standardized extracts. This is really, really important to get the benefits that you're seeing in clinical research. And they work with Hephaestus, Europe's leading mushroom bioscience company. They have high bioavailability. They use incredible ingredients like KSM66, ashwagandha, and rhodola life. And these are the active ingredients that you need to see the difference. They have lots of different blends. Flow gets me into deep focus with lion's mane. Zen helps support my calm and steady my clarity with ashwagandha. And Mojo gives a clean lift, no crash. And Mush Love made with fantastic fungi with 3 Hephaestus mushrooms to elevate your day. Enjoy 20% off and use code LiveWellBeWell. They come in these fantastic little sachets and they are great for traveling too.
One thing that I find really interesting, and a lot of people put lion's mane in their coffee in the morning to kind of help with focus. So what's the kind of interesting research there? Like, does that help with your focus and attention? And the second part to that is I sometimes put reishi in my coffee because I feel like it calms me. And I want to know what the research is there, because when you walked in, I gave you a Live Well Be Well hat and you gave me 2 reishi supplements. And I was like, well, this is an exchange. So I had to bring it up. So I'm thinking about how people might be kind of adding this into their routines, or, you know, what feels that could be quite interesting for people listening to this right now. Can lion's mane help you focus? Like,
Totally.
okay, so it can.
So if I tell you my routine,
Tell me your
every day.
routine.
So I wake up and I take my glass of water with some drops of lemon, and I take my capsules every day. My reishi, cordyceps, and lion's mane. Those are my 3 main mushrooms that I love completely. But I also take the coffee with reishi or with lion's mane.
I'm
depending.
doing something right here.
Yes. So you can bring the mushrooms into your life in different forms and in different moments. So for example, and I prepare my own reishi coffee at home. You can also do it with lion's mane, and it will, as you say, it will be better for your gut. It will be better for your system. The reishi, to me, it brings me calm.
So that's why I do it. Yeah.
Yes. Then
And why does it do that though? Why does it calm you?
Because reishi, it's going to work on neurotransmitters.
Your neurotransmitters.
Yes.
Wow.
Also, lion's mane, it has GABA inside.
So GABA is the anti-anxiety hormone that I talk about a lot.
Exactly. So we are going to be working on all of our hormonal system with reishi mushroom, for example, balancing. We're going to be working on neurotransmitters, and we are going to be activating also the places where the neurotransmitters have to activate.
The synapses.
The synapses. So we're going to be looking at how improving the signaling, and so making the most of all the neurotransmitters as well. And so how can you put in your daily routine the mushrooms. Well, where we were saying you can take them as supplements, but you can take them as the powder in your coffee, or coffee already made with mushrooms. There are really good coffees out there with mushrooms already extracts on them. Then you can also put, for example, what I do very much, and I did for my kids, is to put lion's mane, which is the most edible mushroom of the medicinal mushrooms, into soups or vegetables. Or if you're cooking, for example, a piece of meat, you can put into the sauce the lion's mane powder.
Because they're like big white mushrooms, aren't they?
Yes.
They kind of look like a jellyfish.
They're called monkey heads.
Monkey heads.
Because they look like a monkey head, in fact.
Oh, I just got that completely wrong. I somehow obviously think they look like a jellyfish. Don't listen to me.
Well, I guess there's some jellyfish that look like a monkey head as well. Yeah, and so in Asian cultures, they use mushrooms for so many things. Cookies have mushrooms inside. When you're taking mushrooms as in different moments of the day and you're taking the whole mushroom, that's perfect, because at the end of the day, you're taking a lot of mushroom. But the difference if you're only taking them once, twice a week, then theirs is where the supplementation comes in handy. Because you need those molecules, those ingredients in a specific dose every single day in order to work.
Similar like a probiotic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to be taking it twice a week. You want to be taking it every day.
Exactly.
You also mentioned another one, Cordyceps.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you'd have watched this. The Last of Us was quite a famous show on Netflix, and it just reminds me of Cordyceps, where everyone turned into a zombie.
I haven't seen it.
When I think of Cordyceps, I now think of us all turning into zombies in the future. But, that's another topic of conversation. So what is a Cordyceps mushroom, and how helpful is that for us? What does it do? What's the benefits?
Taken Cordyceps for 15 years and I haven't become a zombie. So, so it's quite safe. It's a booster for energy. It's a booster for performance and for fertility.
No, tell me more.
Well, Cordyceps works in many ways, but for men, for example, what it works is in activating the synthesis of spermidine.
Spermidine?
Yes.
Producing sperm?
Yes. Improves the quality of the sperm. And then also for activates the libido, which is very proven. And then also for women, it cleanses all the mucus from the fallopian tubes. So it allows the fertility moment where the implementation of the zygote into the endometrium. And that is going to help to really bring, to a good end, let's say, when we are trying to have a baby, to conceive.
Wow, I think it's so interesting because one of the episodes that I'm really wanting to do at the moment is on the kind of increase in male infertility. It's, I think for so long, it's always been looked at as a woman if we struggle to conceive, right? And more, we're now also seeing that men are really suffering with this and it's unknown to them. I think women sometimes are a bit more aware because we're aware of our biological clock, and many, maybe many people have known other women that have struggled. So we immediately can think it's us, which also for the men, they don't have that realization that maybe they should get checked at the same time as a woman. And now I think that's becoming, the awareness now is rising so much. I think men are more aware than ever, or when they start trying for a baby, they are. So thinking about mushrooms in this setting is really interesting because it's something that I wouldn't have naturally thought about. And we've done quite a lot of fertility episodes of this podcast. And I think having something like Cordyceps, which...
We work very much in fertility. Even we work in fertility clinics.
Wow.
And with Reishi mushroom and with Cordyceps mushroom, because you're looking at always when you're looking at a couple that are looking to conceive, and they go on through the step of going to a clinic, it's because they have already tried and it hasn't gone well enough. So that it becomes a stress.
Yeah,
becomes
massive.
a very stressful process. And that is not helping.
No.
Stress is completely the opposite of conceiving. So the first thing we need to get is down levels of stress, and that is where Reishi comes in as a big player, bringing the levels of stress really down. And so this applies to both. And lately we're working where this is something that society is really asking for, more knowledge and more research on fertility. And we're working on this. And lately I've been thinking it is conceiving a child is a project of two. So it should be taken care from the two people that are going to have this project in common. So starting with both of them taking the mushrooms, because both sides are stressed. And we know that when men are stressed, the production of sperm, it's very highly reduced. It is highly reduced now with all the problems with the antennas and all of the there are many studies coming out with all the frequencies, the radio frequencies, and how they are affecting. But you can see differences in 15 days.
So that's by even having things like your phone
like
near
the
you, right?
phone. If they take the phone away, 15 days, you see the difference in the quality of the sperm. It's amazing.
Wow. And also, tell me if I'm right or wrong, chemical products around the home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cleansing products.
Yeah.
What happens also for the hormonal disruptors for women.
The endocrine system, the endocrine
exactly.
disruptors. Yeah. Is there any concern about the fetus development when taking mushrooms? I'm just thinking, because we're always thinking about supplements that women should stay away from if they're trying to conceive, like vitamin A. We shouldn't be having too much vitamin A. But and also for men, thinking about their sperm quality, is there any risks of taking these at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
As I said previously,
Yeah.
unless you are allergic, someone who's allergic to mushrooms shouldn't take mushrooms, obviously,
Yes.
not the derivatives from mushrooms. But all we can see from the mushrooms for conceiving is, as we said, the most important part is going to be to have the cells healthy, and the oocyte and the sperm have to be healthy. And there is where we are going to see very good results with the intake of the extracts of the mushrooms, reishi and cordyceps in particular. And then for men and women, and the incredible thing is that it's the same mushrooms for men and women, cordyceps and reishi.
Wow. Okay.
And this also so many times rings a bell of the adaptogenic properties of the mushrooms, which is incredible because they're like intelligent creatures. It's like you're putting a problem, but you're putting both sexes and genders into the conversation, and it's the two same mushrooms that you need in the same quantity that it's going to help both genders.
Wow.
And this is absolutely impressive. And there's a lot of science backing this up. So it's something that we already know, and we are working on it to bring more clinical trials and more solid evidence.
I can't finish this conversation without talking about quality control. So I've got two questions here, and I'm hoping we can answer it in one. Is there any type of stamp or label that has the accreditation and the safety that we know, like whether it's gone through any like regulatory approval and whether it's safe? And the thing that I want to link that to, which is really important when it comes to supplements on whole, when I talk about supplements, I always talk about them as kind of being a byproduct to a very healthy, nutritious diet. But it's also really important to be aware of the supplements that you're buying. Even if we're not thinking about mushrooms, even just in general, like vitamins, right? A lot of them are packed with, bulking agents and things that actually aren't as potent as what the consumer thinks that they are when they're buying them. And so to kind of back this up, I wanted to look a little bit into the research, and I looked at a scientific journal, which hopefully everyone's heard of, called Nature, which is one of the most like renowned and recognized scientific journals. And it was a study that was done in 2017 in America, and it was published in Nature, and it revealed that only 25% of medicinal mushroom products, which is 1 in 4 for context, contain the amount of reishi compounds that their labeling indicated. So even certain products were labeled having all of this, which again is completely wrong and, navigating the consumer in the wrong direction. The other 75% were found to only have traces of reishi or beta-glucans or no mushrooms at all. Yeah. That shocked me. 1 in 4. So we give all this amazing advice, or I don't, you do, on all the different ways that medicinal mushrooms can help and be supportive. And then we come to this. So mushroom quality, to kind of end the conversation, how can a consumer, and I know that you create incredible products as well, and I know a lot of brands come to you as well. How can a consumer navigate that in a world that, I guess, from that study has shown that the labeling isn't even true what's in the product? Is there a trusted stamp that they have to go through in a regulatory process? Or is it just the wild, wild west?
It is kind of sad to say that it's very much the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
There are seals, certificates that are going to help, which are, for example, the organic seal, the organic certification. That's a very good one, which is telling you that the product is organic, but you can have their additions that are organic. You could have potato, you could have maltodextrins that are organic and that are being added. So this is a question that we get the whole time. How can we trust someone that is producing, and more now that they become trendy and there's so many products? My best suggestion, and that's what I do when I buy something, a supplement, I try to look for a recognized brand that they have solid research behind, that they have scientists. Because if you don't have scientists behind studying what you're doing, and then also the organic certification and as many certifications as you can get, but you need to look who's behind that project. Because if not, there are so many brands right now that it's a brand that they do what becomes trendy. And so obviously it's very difficult to know about the mushrooms deeply and understand every mushroom, what their needs are, what you have to look into them for them. And if you have to know that from echinacea and then from tea and then from everything, So it's very important that we know that we are looking at a lab that has scientists behind. This is what I would look for. That's what I look for when I'm buying something.
I think that's really important. And I'm going to definitely link in the show notes the lab that you run and all of the work that you do and the incredible supplements that you put together. And I know that there are some really great brands out there that also work with you and the mushrooms to make sure that they're producing very good products that do have good amounts of these mushrooms in to help. I think it's one of those moments where the responsibility has to be put as well on the consumer just to do that extra little bit of research rather than some good marketing behind it, which is also really hard. And it's, I guess, the interesting thought there is there going to be a regulatory process that comes in around mushrooms? And I guess that's something that you're probably maybe pioneering to try and get a stamp of approval from certain certifications to make sure that these products do contain the amounts that they say they do.
We did, in fact. We went to the Royal Academy of Pharmacy in Spain, and we explained them how we do things, and we gave them all the information, and they said, oh my goodness, I mean, if this is possible, we should ask for everyone to have these standards of production. but then it's not something that, that it's been asked. Let's put it that way. But what I think, it's always think that because products are natural doesn't mean that they are not, or they're always going to be good. They can be good or bad. You need to understand what you're taking, because mushrooms are like a sponge. They are real natural sponges, and they chelate, they take everything from the terrain, from the soil where they are growing, good and bad. When it's bad, it's because they're cleaning that soil, which is marvelous, because they're helping us to cleanse the soil. But if then you produce those mushrooms into something that is going to be taken, well, then it's loaded of heavy metals. So there is where the whole knowledge comes of how are you analyzing, making sure that there are no heavy metals, pesticides, no nonsense in the middle of the product that you're going to take, because it's not for human use. So there is where, to me, the respect of, when you're doing something for people that are trusting you, and that really they are looking at you and your brand and your work to improve their lives, I think it's so important to give back more even of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And that in return. So to me as a scientist, that is a big commitment.
Thank you for that commitment, Dr. Catalina, to do that. And we will link everything in the show notes to all of the research that you do and all the great recommendations that you have and the brands that work alongside you. And I mean, it's amazing. Your website, I spent hours on going through, and all the R&D and all the different clinical trials. It's mind-blown me, half of this conversation. And I really hope that it has for others, is giving them that opening into medicinal mushrooms. The ones that maybe you don't go and buy in the grocery store and put on your pizza, but there's a whole kingdom. That's what you opened with, that terminology. And I think that is the beauty. Their nature, they're living organisms. They were here way before us. And actually using that knowledge to kind of help in the prevention side of our health is something that is really exciting. I find it really exciting on where this is going to end up in the next 10 years.
Oh, in the next centuries.
Yeah.
We have an incredible work ahead of us for so many generations. And yeah, mushrooms have so much to give us. So we really need to take care of them and do it well.
Yeah, that's true for so many things in our environment. We really need to respect and take care of what we're given from Mother Earth. So it leaves me with my final question, which is, Dr. Catalina, what does Live Well, Be Well mean to you?
It has meant coming here today, a whole experience of also thinking of things that I liked very much, the 5 questions.
Yeah, on the
start.
compassionate cure.
Or yeah, I really
Substack.
liked that, and made me think out of my work and my passion and my dedication, but also to my other me, which is also very passionate and very dedicated. But I love that. And yeah, the way of, I think it's so important, the work that you're doing by educating, by bringing science to people, to educate them, to make them stronger. Information and science makes us stronger and freer.
Yeah.
The more you know, the freer you will become, because you can make your own decisions. And so it gives you that empowerment to make your own decisions in your body, that you're the one who knows your best you and your best version of you, or where you can get. So I think it's so important that we obviously have doctors, have oncologists, have all the health system to take care of us. But the first step is caring for oneself. And that needs to be learned.
I love that. Knowledge is power, and looking after one true self and trusting one's true self. I love that. I will take that with me this evening. And I'm going to take so much knowledge on mushrooms. I'm going to have to go and eat some mushrooms now. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the incredible work you've done over the last 26 years in mycology and oncology. And I'm so excited to see what's next. So you'll have to come back on when these clinical trials are done and tell us the results.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.